It's time for the Clash of Generations 3 as Shakhriyar Mamediaro makes the first move. The battle is between Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus and Veselin Topalov, a 6 game match happening in Monaco and sponsored by Evren Uchok. This is going to be an epic clash between one young boy who is 14 years old, Turkey number one, aiming to be the youngest 2700, and his opponent Veselin Topalov, a legend, a former FIDE world champion. D4, knight f6, pawn to c4. Now, Yaz is considered by many to be one of the finest talents that the world has ever seen. And Veselin adjusts the piece. And this is the Clash of Generations 3. The first one was against Peter Svidler, which Yaz had won, then against MVL, a very strong one, which again Yaz had won, and now this third one against Veselin Topalov, pawn to d5. It's the Queen's Gambit declined, and Yaz brings his knight to c3. These matches provide invaluable training for the youngster. Semislav on the board, a fighting opening. Bishop to g5. Yaz going for the sharpest line there. In fact, the funny thing is, in their matches or in the games that Topalov used to play in his prime against Kramnik, he would play this opening from the white side, takes the pawn, and he is actually asking Yaz, have you prepared well for this? Yaz is like, let's go, pawn to e4. He takes the center, g5. First of all, breaking the pin here. Bishop comes to g3, and now b5 to protect the pawn. White is basically a pawn down, but black has a lot of weaknesses in the position, and white is banking on the lead in development that he has. Bishop comes to b7. The players are making their moves rapidly, and now Yaz goes knight to e5. He's putting pressure on the f7 pawn. Also, bishop h5 can come in at some point. Knight d7, challenging the knight on e5. White castles here. One of the key ideas here often is to play f4 to open up the f file. Topalov, of course, is someone who knows his stuff well. You can see Yaz down to 1 hour 8 minutes takes on d7. This bishop can get trapped here. So queen takes d7, and Yaz now plays queen c1, attacking the pawn on g5. You have rook g8 defending the pawn, and now the main move is rook d1. But Yaz plays queen e3, and by the way, he's down to 37 minutes on the clock. That's insane, because there are 30 games that have been played in this position. Topalov, making better use of his time, goes h4 and bishop e5, attacking the knight on f6. Queen e7 is a move, but Topalov goes queen d8, defending the knight here. And now h3, just stopping the pawn from moving forward. And now knight d7 attacks the bishop. One of the problems that black has is the king in the center. Yaz simply goes bishop h2, and he's aiming for a central breakthrough with d5, maybe even bringing the rook in first. Queen b6, stopping d5 for now, as the queens would get traded. Rook d1, defending the pawn. And now Veselin goes pawn to e5. Very, very interesting move. But look at this knight. It can be attacked. Bishop d7 and d5 with the check threat is a big, big threat. Rook d8 played. And now you can simply take and play bishop e5. White is clearly better. But Yaz is going for the attack. He goes queen f3. This is Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus for you. 12 minutes on the clock. He's going full on ambitious. And Veselin, this move must have come as a shock to him. He looks at the board. He's not writing his score sheet. He now takes the pawn and asks Yaz, what's the plan here? Well, Yaz's plan He's 12 minutes. He goes e5 after thinking 8 minutes. And of course, you can't take here. e6 would simply end the game. fe6, bishop h5, and bishop d6 is a mate. Topalov finds c5, hitting the queen. The knight jumps into e4. And now bishop takes e4, good move. Queen takes e4, taken. And the time is 4 minutes for Yaz, 32 for Veselin with a very complex position. Looking good for black actually, with the fact that the position is equal. But a4, Yaz tries to activate his rook here. b4, keeping it closed. And now queen comes back to e2, attacking the pawn on c4. And maybe d3 is to be played. Pawn to d3, the queen is attacked, and now queen e4, putting pressure on the pawn on c4. The knight jumps back to f8. Topalov playing this very carefully, takes on c4, but now rook d4, brilliant move. It's beautiful to see Veselin in such good shape, putting pressure on Yagiz Kaan. Check. And now queen takes queen. Black is the one who's pressing here. And now maybe knight e6 is a very good move because it blocks the pawn. But Topalov gets a bit greedy. He saves the pawn. It's maybe the best move, rook a7, but now definitely knight e6. This is important. 23 minutes for Topalov, 37 seconds for Yaz. Pawn to c3, and look at Yaz, he's ready with his move. Topalov has 2 pawns here. Yaz's pawn moving ahead. Insane action, drama on the board. What is Veselin going to do? He goes c2, he attacks the rook, and Yaz goes b7. Oh my goodness, if you take here, bishop takes. He comes back, very important, and one might think, why not to take this with a check, but we'll analyze this later. Pawn to e6, now opening up the bishop. That's why I was saying, put the knight here. Knight takes e6, and now he plays rook a8, finds only moves with just seconds on the clock. Goes king d7 to defend this. The position is still equal. Rook takes d3, important move. Takes, check, king c6 has to be played. Can Veselin Topalov save this position? Bishop f3, check. Oh, king c5, blunder, king b6, only move here. What was the only move? King c5 is a bad move because now Yaz is winning. Rook takes d8, yes. And after rook takes d8, he plays knight c7. Oh my goodness, things have completely turned around. And Yaz is totally winning. But the boy is so sharp from 7 seconds. He's gone to 1 minute 41 seconds. Rook check. He's seen the checkmate. He's seen the checkmate here. If king b6, there's a mate. By the way, a queen can happen here. Bishop check. But even before that can happen, it's game over. King here, check. King here, check. And it's a mate. Nothing less than that. And Topalov resigns. Wow. What a game this was. And instantly starts analyzing. And knight e6 is what Yaz is saying. Why didn't you play knight e6? 1.5 points. This is the second game in the match. The first one ended in a draw. The second one has ended with a victory for Yaz. 1.5 is the score in the 6-game match. And what a match this is turning out to be. Let's analyze some of the key moments to understand what actually transpired.
Let's look at the game from this point. Here, black could have blocked the pawn with knight e6. Instead, Topalov played c4,
and after taking on a7, this was his last chance. But he went c3, and it was understandable because now he has 2 pawns that are very strong. And this was an absolutely amazing move. The thing is, now you are queening, and black went rook d8. So the natural question to ask is, why can't you take this with a check and then play rook d8? What changes? Well, the biggest change and the most incredible change is e6. And now the point is, the bishop can actually pop out from here. So let's just say you play the move fe6. Now suddenly I have bishop h5 check, king d7, and b8 queen with the rook giving a check. If you play knight g6, I have bishop c7, and somehow the rook is left without squares. If you play king f7 trying to defend here, I take and rook a8, and it's white who wins. So in this regard, taking with a check, bishop d1 opens up bishop a4 ideas in certain lines. For example, after knight e6, you go rook a8, king d7, and now this beautiful bishop a4 checkmate, which is the reason why Topalov had 17 minutes here and he quickly played rook d8, which is the best move. e6 now opening up. He took with the knight, all this while rook a8, and now once again take, bishop takes, king d7 is met with bishop a4 checkmate. So that's the reason why he goes king d7, a great move, check. So till now Topalov is playing well, and now with 14 minutes he had to slow down and find the move king b6. Now the thing is, there's a check that's coming up here. So you take here, rook takes, and now it's quite natural to think that b8 is coming with a check. So firstly, rook takes d8, c1 queen, rook d1, queen takes d1, very important move, bishop takes, and king b7, and it's a draw. This is why the king had to be on b6. But the king went to c5, and now Yaz finds this beautiful move rook d8. Because if you queen, he simply comes back, takes here, and makes a queen. It's just insane. Topalov was left with no moves, because if rook d8, now comes the move rook c8, which I think he must have missed. Now king b6 is met with a queen check. And this is losing position because c2 is also hanging. And so he had to play the move knight c7 here, which is already leading to a mate. And that's an interesting moment, because now there's like a threat to make a queen, threat to take here. So if you make a queen now, it should also win, but black can also make a queen. But Yaz actually finds a checkmate. Rook a5, king b6 met with a queen, so king c4, check on e2, king b3, and now rook d3 check, and this is such a beautiful mate. So very, very interesting game and amazing play by Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus.